Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Democratic View. And I'm very happy today to present to all of you a man I have deep respect for, one of our council people, Jeff Bragman, who is now running for supervisor on the Independence Party line. So we're very, very happy about that, and we want to know more about him for those of you who don't know a lot about him, although I've watched him on the town board meetings all the time.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I wish more people watch those town board meetings, although it takes some effort to do it. I'm glad to be here again, and I'm glad to be running for supervisor on the Independence Party line. You know me well because I've been here for more than 35 years, and you probably remember my son when he was much smaller than he is now.
I do.
And not much has changed in my attitude about the town since I first moved here, and that is, you know, I moved here to make it my home, and it is my home. And I have to tell you, somebody came up to me when I first ran in 2017. It was up in Clearwater, I think. Someone came up to me and was joking with me and said, like, well, you know, you're a lawyer, you've got a law practice. Why is a smart guy like you running for town board? And I kind of laughed it off. And as I walked away, someone came up to me, a wiser campaigner came up to me, and he said, you know, when people ask you that, it's not a joke. You have to answer and tell them why. And he said, you have to invent your elevator speech, you know, to explain to people. And I was thinking, oh God, I can't do an elevator speech. But as I was driving around, I said, it's really very simple. East Hampton is my home, and I want to protect it. And that is why I ran in 2017, and that's why I've been involved in politics since I got out here, and it's why I'm running now. East Hampton's my home, and I want to protect it. And the town board's the best place to do it. So not much has changed over the years as far as I'm concerned. The town has changed, but you know, I think I still have the same goals. I'd like to make it, anything I could do to make it quieter, slower, and calmer, I would do. And I think there's probably more that we can do about that, but we can talk about that as we move on.
Well, of course, the reason that I'm behind you 100% is because of the way you feel about this town, because I do the same thing. You know, I absolutely love living here.
I know you do. I know you do.
I couldn't live anywhere else. I mean, I'm in the water.
I was going to say, I know you're a morning swimmer in cool weather and warm weather.
I'm in the water from the end of the middle of April to November the 4th was my last swim last year.
Well,
I mean,
it's doing good things for you. You look fit and healthy, which is a good thing. Yeah, I feel, I don't know, there's something about it. I mean, East Hampton's a very special place. What makes it special really is, you know, the incredible beauty of it. And I kind of wish more folks would slow down a little and just sort of take it in and view it more for what it is rather than a social venue or a party venue. Of course, the people who live here, whether they're new residents or generational residents, are a part of what makes East Hampton great. And a lot of the newer folks that have moved in feel the same way. I've talked to many people who are, you know, brand new residents that want to keep it green, quiet, calm, and so I welcome them just like.
I remember when Tim Bishop ran as wasn't a council person, he was a
for Congress.
Yeah, he was a congressional.
He was a congressional.
And he said to me that the vistas that we have, that we look out over, have to be preserved, as well as our water has to be preserved.
Yeah, it's one of the things I did right when I got into office at Town Hall. We were getting a lot of complaints from people in Wainscott who were saying that lands that we had preserved were kind of disappearing, and the view sheds that we intended to protect were disappearing, because after a while, when land changes hands, you know, people begin to treat the property, if it has an easement on it, as sort of part of their own property. So
Right.
increasingly people were hedging them off, and they were really losing the view sheds that really make wainscot wainscot. And so I worked on some amendments to several sections of the town code that made it clear that all the boards that would review applications could take into account the impacts of an application or the ownership of land if there was a open space on the land. They could take that into account and preserve the view sheds and the purposes for which we bought the lands. And it enabled us to start inventorying them better, putting them on a list of properties to be inspected. So it's a way to make sure that when we spend money and buy a farm field, for example, it doesn't turn into a hedged lawn or backyard of somebody if it's on the property. So there are things we can do. But in general, I think we might need a slight change of attitude about what we're here for. I mean, and I agree with you, because no matter where I am or what time of year it is, at every turn you can find a view that's just, it just fills you. It's with comfort.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember walking in the Springs Park, that they call the dog park.
Yes.
In late February, which is not the prettiest month, and it's just stunningly beautiful. That park is really beautiful, and same with the beaches at all times of year.
Yeah, I was up at Clearwater Beach the other day and watched the end of the day and the sunset, and I just really, it just took my breath away. It was so gorgeous.
And I think it always will. We've had a huge influx of, our population has grown largely because of COVID and people coming out. And to shift the topic slightly away from view sheds,
Yes.
It's caused a little bit of a problem, or it's exacerbated a problem we've always had with cell phone reception. And I remember back in 2017 when I was running, actually, the first debate I participated in, the first question was, what are you going to do about cell phone service? And I didn't, my answer was I wanted to protect view sheds, and I thought we really needed to balance the impacts of anything we did against what it would do to the look and feel of the land. And I still feel that way. And that's why I've been involved in this controversy over the town. I think the town's hasty and not well thought out decision to put a 185-foot tower, starting with a temporary tower, then a 185-foot tower over on Crandall Road, not that far from where you live, up in Springs.
I know it, yes.
Yeah. And I wasn't familiar with Crandall Road, really. We had been talking about it. I can't discuss what we said because it was done behind closed doors. And I finally just said, when someone asked, well, what do you think of this? I said, well, I want to go see it. I got to go take a look at this. Yeah. And when I got out to Crandall Road, I drove around it, and I knew immediately this was the wrong place, wrong idea, not well thought out, because it's a 6-acre, it's really a reserve is what it is. It's a woodland. And the more I found out about it, the more I knew how cherished it was by the community there. And it's a middle-class community, working-class community. I think about a third of the folks living there are Spanish-speaking. But, I just came back and convinced that it was not the right place to put a huge tower. And I really tried to alert the town board and say, if you're really going to consider this, you have to bring the neighborhood in and tell them what you're doing. And instead they just put it on an ordinary work session agenda, which unless you're like Phyllis Italiano and 4 or 5 other people who really religiously watch these things, it's not a great way to get the word out. But
I should say.
Yeah, but the word did get out, and the community was, I think, appropriately angry, and it's turned into a really roiling controversy. And this week there's an editorial in the Star which adopts the position that I've been encouraging, which is that this is just not the right.
Oh, there are signs all over the area there now.
And it's touching when you see, people come in, and there was one neighbor who came in and said, I'm a great grandmother now. My son played in that woodland and made forts in it, and they had paintball, fun in there, and they rode their bikes in there. And he's grown up, and his kid used the woodland, and she had a picture of her great grandchild and said, I hope this kid also plays there. And I think it's incumbent on us to listen to the community and to act deliberatively, thoughtfully, and take the appropriate steps to review the impacts. And environmental impacts include impacts to recreational areas. They include aesthetic impacts. They include neighborhood impacts. They include displacing people from a use that is part of the community, which this would involve. So, and what surprised me about the controversy was the supervisor explained that we had to go with Crandall because we couldn't get a tower nearby in the Girl Scout camp, which is a much larger piece of property.
179 acres.
Yeah, much bigger. And everybody agrees is the optimal location for it. And I was skeptical of that. and actually, shortly before the meeting, the first meeting where the neighbors were going to come out, just picked up the phone and called the Girl Scout camp and expected to get an answering machine. But the woman who manages the camp got on the phone and we talked, and she said, oh, I'm going to the town board meeting, and explained that they didn't have any opposition to a tower of the height that we needed, and they were stunned to see some of these newspaper accounts that they were the obstacle, and that's where I think that's where it unraveled sort of the whole rationale for using Crandall Road. And as it turns out, they don't have any opposition to it. They've leased it to a tower company, and I've taken the position publicly that the correct answer here, because we did not go through an appropriate environmental review process, is to reinitiate negotiations and get it done on the Girl Scout camp. And if necessary, we have the powers of eminent domain. We can condemn property and create a space for us. So I mean, we're in a good position to negotiate fairly. But get it done without hurting the Crandall Road neighborhood. And that's been a theme, I think, of the time that I've been on the town board, is to listen to the public, to lead by listening, is what I've said.
I know you do.
And I don't believe, and I never have believed, that government has to solve its problems, that these problems are I win, you lose type situations. I don't think that to improve cell phone service for the entire community, you have to slam a Crandall Road community or a small section of it. I think there's usually ways to work it out so that everybody is remains unaffected, and I think this is that kind of a situation. I don't think we did the kind of work that we needed to properly analyze it and go through the steps and figure it out.
So this is really about cell phone service in Springs.
Yes. They've kind of wrapped it into the emergency radio system that we've had difficulties with for, really ever since I've been in office, so 3.5 years. We've had, there've been delays and it's incomplete, and it's slowly working its way toward completion. But I think the urgency, the reason that the town board just said, gravitated toward a quick solution is, that the complaints have been escalating. But it's not appropriate to do it. Never helps to rush into a decision. We always do better when we listen to the public. We always do better when we follow a process of review, a fair, objective process, and consider alternatives. And had we done that, I don't think we'd have this controversy. But having proceeded as we did, it's now erupted into something fairly serious.
The one thing that I'm always concerned about is the Springs School. There are almost 700 children in that school. and they do not have good service. And I'm concerned about that because, well, my granddaughter just graduated from there, and I used to worry a lot, you know, if anything ever happened, what would they do?
It's a serious problem. I'm not downplaying it, and you know, I've been critical of the town board not acting quickly enough on this, and I want to say I include myself in this because I've been a member of the town board for 3.5 years. I mean, I haven't been on there as long as the other folks, but I've been there, and it is a serious problem. And but like all the serious challenges that we have, you know, the best way through it is through sort of a careful, methodical, deliberative look where we really look at other options and we don't rush in. And I very often have seen the town board do the opposite. It's sort of I call it ready, fire, aim. It's much better to aim before you fire.
That's a good one.
You know, and I received some criticism for that position, although on the wind farm, and you know, recently, just within the last couple of days, I was saying, you know, I support the wind. I like the idea of wind as one of the tools to get renewable energy, but I said it makes sense to hold off giving everybody permission until they complete the environmental review process. And now, not having done that, the headline yesterday in the papers was that Ørsted is reneging on a promise that they made to the trustees, that the trustees considered, you know, the heart of their deal with them, and that was to do some 2 years worth of studies of fish migration near the shorelines in East Hampton.
Cox's Ledge and all that stuff.
Well, Cox's Ledge is in the sea and is very important to the fishing community and definitely an issue with the wind farm. In addition, the near shore areas are very important to local fishermen because that's where the fish migrate and it's where they breed, and so they wanted to make sure that nothing in the near shore area affected them. And the promise was we'd do 2 years of studies so that we had a baseline so they could really determine what the impacts are. And now they're just saying they're not going to do it, and frankly, we'll have to see what the trustees do. You know, their leverage is considerably lessened because they've gotten their approval from them, basically. So,
one of my questions always about Ørsted was that how much wind really is there in the summertime?
There's less. And actually,
that's why I asked that
Yes,
question.
yeah, there's less. And originally the project was sold with the idea that, oh, it's going to help us with our peak demand, which happens now, like in mid to late August. So the answer is it's less likely to help us then. It's still a good thing to have wind power. I mean, it's definitely one of the good things. But you know, also solar as well is really important. And the numbers on solar seem to be increasing. They've done some more recent studies that indicate we can get a bigger bang for the buck than we thought.
I got solar panels, so don't talk to me about solar
I know.
panels. I know what they can do for you.
We should have more of them, there's no doubt.
And I mean, the talk about the airport and, you know, will it close and stuff like that, that would be a wonderful place for a solar farm.
That has been suggested, and I think it's probably an idea that is in play. The airport property, actually, you know, a lot of people have a lot of ideas for the airport property. It happens to be a really, really highly sensitive aquifer area.
Oh, I know
so it's
that.
very,
yes.
and it's also the watershed for Georgica Pond. So, and Georgica's threatened right now. They're having a harmful algae
Yes.
bloom. And, you know, a couple of years ago, we had a dog that died, that went in the water and inhaled it and died.
I remember that one.
Yeah. So it's very unlikely that the airport property would have any kind of water-intensive uses because, you know, the way there are also public water supply wells there. So the way we protect those lands is we've upzoned them to the largest zoning category we have. A lot of it's in conservation, you know, the conservation district, and we've spent millions of dollars with the county and the state buying lands because the best way to protect the aquifer and our drinking water is to have no development there. But solar, you're right. There are opportunities for solar there. So I'm sure it'll be considered. And I know the airport is the looming question.
Boy, is it
I
ever.
know. I have a history as an attorney, long before people were talking about the airport as they are now, of opposing federal control, which is why we can't control traffic, and opposing, I would say, supporting noise controls. So I have a very long record as an advocate against the noise, and it's not merely the noise. It's noise, it's pollution, and it's safety. Because we have a lot of low-flying. Right now, we have a type of permission you can get to land in bad weather, and you come in under the clouds. And believe me, we get telephone calls and emails from people who remind us very vigorously that the airport is ruining their lives. So I'm aware of that. And we've had this process designed. I'm a liaison to the airport, and we're going to go into a stage where we have small breakout groups where people can come in, and they don't have to be in a room full of 100 people, but they can break out into smaller groups and input their comments, and they'll have moderators there to help them. So that's
Boy, I want to be a part of that.
that's coming up in September, very, very soon in
Yeah,
September.
because, the airport has been, you pass it to come here, and you look at it and you say, why do we have that?
You may remember, I have a few more years here than you do, but I remember when I got here in the 80s, that was a small private plane airport. That's all it was.
It was what the people who lived here, who just were flying an airplane.
Correct. It was a
little
largely recreational
Yeah.
use. The pilots remind me that some of those private-owned planes were flying on business trips. But basically, the kind of airport it was pretty low intensity, I would say. Now, today, if you drive by, there are jets and helicopters.
I just did.
So we have an opportunity late September to make a decision. I hope the folks at home understand that it's not a hard and fast deadline. It's not a hard stop. We're not if we don't. It's not like if we don't act on the date.
September the 4th.
It's in the 20s.
Whatever.
I don't want to say the wrong number, but it's in late September. It doesn't mean we've lost the game. It just means we have time to think about it.
Well, does the FAA?
The FAA's, the grant assurances, which are these contractual obligations that have prevented us from imposing noise controls, limiting the traffic, getting rid of the commercial traffic, that sort of thing, will expire. So. And that's, for the first time, going to give us real control over the airport. But it's not like if we don't do it on the date that they expire that we've lost the opportunity. We'll have the opportunity to think it through, and we have a lot of options that we'll be discussing in public. So I'm hoping that we can come to some at least preliminary conclusions before the election. We'll see how that goes. We're bumping up against the deadlines, but I think people are probably pretty eager to hear from us before the election.
I wonder how you sleep at night. You have so many things you have to think about. I have to think about, did I do the wash?
Listen, I have to think about doing the wash too. That's a part of my day-to-day thing. Walking the dogs and doing.
I know, but
it's a little.
so
There's a lot. I have to say. I was talking to somebody the other day about what it's like to be in government, and he said it's like, you don't have really time to learn when you're in government, because there's so many things coming at you. It's like a conveyor belt with issues, coming in front of you, and you got to sort of decide as you go along. And it's too bad, because I think a lot of the decisions would go better if we took a little pause and did better with our long-range planning. This has been a theme for me since I got on the town board, that the environmental process. It's not a glamorous issue to sell voters, to stand up and go, I believe in good process. It's like whoever lined up to support that. But the fact is, we make better decisions when we do our homework. It's as simple as that. And if we take a little extra time, it also helps us structure our decision making so that we're not just shooting in the dark. It organizes, like the environmental law, which I've lived by for 30 years out here. is a really, really important helper in organizing a process so you come to a really rational decision. And I would like to see it used more, and I'd like us to slow down on the big projects because they come back. I mean, another instance where it came up was with the medical facility over on Panago Road, and which I supported. I want people at home to know that I support a medical facility. At the same time, I said, we should do a thorough environmental review because it has the potential for causing traffic impacts and parking impacts. And again, the board rushed through it, and I voted for it, but I raised these issues, and 4 weeks ago, there was some news stories about how the planning board is now confronting major traffic issues and even contemplating a traffic circle in front of Panago Road.
And not only that, but when your own doctor is there and you can't get to him because of the traffic, you know, that's hard.
It's worth anticipating and planning and knowing before we go. That was another theme I ran on. Like, a lot of people call East Hampton the land of no, N-O, and I said I'd like it to be the land of no, K-N-O-W, as in know before you go. I don't believe in ready, fire, aim. I'd rather aim better.
That's really wonderful. I love that so much, Jeff. Well, listen, you know, I stand behind you 100% because I do know that you really are a man who investigates and weighs the options and tries to make the best decision.
I'm trying.
Our town, which you love and I love.
I am trying to do that.
I can't live anywhere else, so I want the best for it.
And you know, I look back on some of the videotapes they have here, and I've been talking politics since 1985. So
thank you so much for coming,
I know we're
my
almost
dear.
out of time. Thank you for having me again.
But I really enjoy talking to you so much.
Yeah, it's always fun. Thank you.
More.